Hi, welcome to the December 19th workshop meeting, Village of Buchanan. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any printed agendas? Yeah, thanks. And I want to announce we have our new deputy treasurer with us this evening, Keith. Welcome. All right. Our planner is with us this evening, Dave. Discussion on rezoning the M2 district. Well, mostly the Indian Point property.
Yes. So the package that was provided to you included several different items for discussion. The first was just a cover memo identifying that there are some comments in the margin of the draft text that's been prepared that we should discuss at some point. The package also included a memo that was prepared to you a little over a year ago, in July of 2022, which had a number of different discussion items, including a review of a vision statement or purpose statement, which has been incorporated into the draft text as part of the purpose for the district, looking at the zoning boundary. And I think part of that is also looking at general review of development criteria to understand and have a better understanding of the development potential that you may have as part of the Indian Point and the other properties along the waterfront in the M2 district. So with that, just quickly go through. So one of the issues that the village is still working through is you have an active process with the LWRP or drafting of an LWRP, and that's being prepared by others. And I know that a draft has been prepared and it's still in process. So I haven't made any reference in the zoning text to that document, but it does, the zoning text, the draft zoning text does reflect a lot of the goals and objectives that the LWRP would have, like making sure that there's adequate or encouraging public access to the waterfront, encouraging mixed use along the waterfront district in the M2. And at some point when, if the village gets to a point where they adopt it, then we could go back, or the zoning text as it stands right now is a standalone document and can move forward separate from the LWRP process. So it doesn't have to be tied to it. One of the commitments we made as part of the work process is that when you do have zoning text that is you're ready to adopt, we would draft essentially a separate chapter of your comprehensive plan dealing just with the waterfront and with the proposed zoning text. So you would have an amendment to your comprehensive plan as part of this process, but that's further down the road once we have some agreement on the overall focus and study of the zoning text. There are a couple of other issues that we'll get to when we go through the draft zoning text, particularly with it where it relates to things like building height and density, because those are important issues that obviously relate to the overall entitlements for those properties, and we'll get to that as we move through the discussion. Marcus, I had sent to you an email just recently that had some of the graphics on it. I don't know if you can put that up. If not, don't worry about it. It's all part of the package you had received. So the draft text that you have has been it's basically a compilation of a number of different communities that I've had an opportunity to work in, primarily the village of Sleepy Hollow. And I know that you as a board were thinking about going down to do a site walk or site visit for the Tarrytown and the Sleepy Hollow waterfronts. So a lot of this is my experience based on working with those types of waterfronts. And then I've worked in a number of different waterfront communities, and I've tried to incorporate a lot of what I think are the positive aspects of the text. So just walking through the draft text, we have the purpose statement, and the purpose statement is basically follows from that July 2022 memo, which we talked about a vision statement, and it talks about providing opportunities to invite the public down to the Hudson River, positive development and revitalization of the waterfront area, providing encouraging an economic stimulus and revitalization of the village and its Hudson River waterfront, talking about comprehensively planned and focused development, achieving public access, and providing standards for development. So that's the zoning and the purpose statement incorporates those concepts, and then the zoning text follows through with that. So the purpose statement is essentially an overview of the goals and objectives that the village is trying to accomplish with the rezoning. And as part of this, I did mention the LWRP process that you're undergoing. As part of that LWRP process, that's Local Waterfront Revitalization Program for the folks at home. There was a survey that was conducted, and we tried to incorporate some of the concepts that came out of that survey, because that reflected kind of the local constituency of what they were.
Even though it's a small cross section.
Well, yeah, I think there were over 300 respondees,
But I think the response was on the low side.
Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers, but you do have some gauge of what people would like to see.
Mhm.
Obviously, going through this process is another opportunity for you to get public input and feedback. There's a section now. Also reference that the numbering for the draft text is just for this text alone. I'll need to work with the village attorney on if you're going to move forward with getting the proper numbering. But for this purposes, it just helps to understand and follow through and to reference different sections. And the other component to this is, as much as possible, there are a number of cross references to different sections in your code, like signage or lighting. So we've tried to incorporate that so that there's consistency throughout, and that if somebody's reviewing this document, they can go to the village code and find those other cross-reference sections within the code. So typically under zoning, you've got a number of permitted principal uses. And in this draft, it's section 211-4 on page 2. And most of these are water-related, water-dependent uses, charter boats, mariculture and aquaculture, fishing and marine supply, wholesale and retail, fish and seafood, community centers, recreation activities, boat and kayak rentals, all things that are related to having access to water as principal permitted uses. And then you get into the special permit uses. And those are for this district, the special permit, just like you had for the recent C1, C2 overlay zoning change, where the village board was the one granting the special permit. In this instance, we're recommending the same thing, that because of the importance of these types of uses for the village, that you as the elected body would have the responsibility for granting the special permit as part of the initial approval. And essentially it's a two-step process. The special permit process, the applicant would come to you, they would make a formal submission, and there's all the criteria are listed in here as to what an applicant would be required to provide. And they would include a concept plan. And it's not in a fully engineered detail, but it has enough information so that the village and the public can understand what's being proposed, and you can analyze the potential impacts. And that provides an applicant with the ability to come in with a development concept. They don't have to go through the expense of going into detailed engineering plans, site plan drawings, but it provides the public and you, the board, with an understanding of the impacts. And then the second part of that, once the special permit is approved, just like what you did for the C1, C2,
Right.
then you would have a formal site plan application, and that application would go to the planning board. And that's where they would get into the details, the grading, stormwater management, utilities. So it's basically a two-step process, and I think a good one. It's worked well in the communities that I've been a part of, and as part of a zoning strategy, it's something that I've recommended to other communities because it does allow for a bifurcation of the process, but it still allows for significant input from the public up front and doesn't create a burden on an applicant to have to create detailed plans when they're still going through the planning and evaluation process. So with the special permit uses, that would include things like marinas, multifamily residential uses, commercial retail, retail and personal service shops with a maximum floor area per building of no greater than 50,000 square feet. So, and just as by way of example, on the Sleepy Hollow waterfront at the former GM site, they're just breaking ground now on a new DeChico's supermarket. That's approximately 34,000 square feet. Just to give you some sense of the scale of what we're thinking about or what's being included in here. Includes the other special permit uses include restaurants, inns, hotels, galleries, workshops, retail shops associated with arts and crafts, professional, medical, healthcare, and business offices, but it excludes hospitals, detoxification facilities, and special hospitals, psychiatric hospitals, those types of things. But medical office is certainly a use that is prevalent in Westchester County. In fact, again, on the Sleepy Hollow waterfront, Simone Development, which they build and operate medical office buildings, has I want to say it's a 24,000 square foot medical office building that's going in. And again, it's one of these facilities where they're partnering with Phelps Hospital, which is nearby.
Yeah.
So it's a good symbiotic relationship within the community.
Mm-hmm.
So the concept is that an applicant's going to come in, not necessarily with a small, just individual lot. They're going to come in with a much bigger section. And as part of the July 21st, 22 memo, we had identified certain development areas. I think there were 4 or 5 of them. And so the concept is, and this is part of the overall kind of concept plan process, is that you would have a development that's at least 20 acres in size. Now, in some of those parcels that you're talking about, you have like 65 acres, things like that. And so the concept is an applicant's going to come in with a mixed use development so that a portion of this overall site would be for multifamily. They may have a small area that's devoted to retail. They may have another area that's devoted to an office type of use. And so the concept is to have a mixed use proposal. And again, there's a lot of synergies that get created when you have both the residential and the commercial and the retail and some of these other office type uses that are all within proximity to each other. There's a kind of this concept that some of the business organizations in Westchester County have promoted of live, work, play, where you have a development where you essentially you live in a place and then you're able to walk or conveniently get to where you're working, and then the same thing, you have convenience to play. And obviously here you've got one of the ultimate resources in the Hudson River. And so that's kind of the concept behind that. One of the design concepts within the zoning is that for those parcels that get developed that are on the waterfront, there's dedicated waterfront access so that you have a promenade or an esplanade along maybe not the entirety of the waterfront, because you have other uses that are existing uses that will probably stay, and we've talked about this before, will probably be staying. But the concept is that where you have the opportunity available is that you make the waterfront available to the public. And again, I'll reference back to my experience with the Tarrytown and Sleepy Hollow waterfronts, where the Tarrytown portion is essentially been built, and the Sleepy Hollow portion has been built for the most part. There's one section that's remaining, but I'll tell you that going down there on a summer evening, it's amazing how many people are walking up and down. And this is a site that's still under construction, that hasn't been fully built out yet, but the opportunities are there, and I think that's part of what we want to create is opportunities for the village and its residents. So as I mentioned, the procedure for review, again, there's a phase one, which is the special permit and the waterfront concept plan, and phase two is the site plan process before the planning board itself. Given the nature of this type of development, typically you're going to require, as part of the review process, an environmental impact statement, just because you've got the sheer numbers. When you have a smaller project, like a couple of the projects that you've been reviewing, the village has been reviewing recently, those are smaller and discrete. But here we're talking about much larger developments. And when we get to the discussion on density, you'll see that it's fairly intense. There will be a number of studies that will be required, or we would suggest they be required. Traffic is probably the biggest one. And, part of the consideration, you had a facility that was very active at one point. I think you had 1,000 employees.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some accommodation in the infrastructure already for the people who are coming and going. So that has to be kind of factored into the evaluations. I know, like for when the General Motors plant was in operation, 3 times a day, the streets in Sleepy Hollow and Tarrytown were basically shut down as the shift changes were going. And we had to remind people that, you had 6,000 people there at one point. And so all of that traffic was on the streets at one point. So it's not all new traffic, but you have to understand that, accommodate that as part of the review. And there'll be other studies and analyses. Utilities, do you have enough water and sewer? If not, then an applicant's going to have to make some accommodations to accommodate that. There are kind of the demographic and the fiscal analyses, introducing that type of a new population into the village. And I think we talked about this a little bit with the AMS project, that all those new households bring with it disposable income, which some portion of which is going to be spent in kind of the greater Buchanan community. Not necessarily all of it in Buchanan, but there will be some. And so how does the village capture some of that and to its own benefit, economic benefit? There'll be impacts to schools, fire, police, ambulance. So all that will have to be evaluated in more detail. As part of the special permit process, and this was something that's in the Tarrytown ordinance, they had an incentive clause in the zoning text. So a developer could come in, you've got like essentially a baseline set. And if the developer came in and offered community benefits, then the way the text was written, the village had an opportunity to enhance density or create or allow for additional floor area so that you could have bigger units. So that's included with this draft as well. So you have that opportunity to capture some community benefits beyond just what is in the zoning. So the site plan, it follows essentially the Village of Buchanan procedures. It requires all the information, and it's fairly specific with grading and drainage and utilities. And the planning board will have their own site plan review process. And one of the benefits too is that going through the secret process, that's the State Environmental Quality Review with the DEIS, sorry, I'm throwing around all these acronyms.
But that's good. I'm glad because the audience doesn't always know those acronyms.
Right.
That was the same thing last week at the DOB meeting, the Decommissioning Oversight Board meeting I had to mention, because there were some acronyms that were being used. So thank you, Dave. That's,
And if there's anything that
Appreciate it.
I mentioned that, so the DEIS is the draft environmental impact statement. So and that's one part of a process, and then there's the final environmental impact statement process. But the main objective is that by going through the environmental review process as part of the special permit and the concept plan, when you get to the site plan, you don't need to go through that process again. You've kind of evaluated all of the impacts, and you're looking at details at that point. We have included some design standards that a development would require it or have to incorporate. A lot of it has to deal with the quality of architecture. Others are understanding kind of the relationship of the site to its surroundings. So because you have this natural beauty of the Hudson River, to the extent that you want to have the streets oriented towards the river so that they look out. You have a vista that looks out over the river. And again, those are public streets. So you want to give the public an ability to look out over the Hudson and not have it walled off. So those are some of the design concepts that we've tried to incorporate as part of the draft language. Again, relationship to the Hudson River, so making sure that you've got access in different formats, whether it's riprap where you could actually walk down to the river, or where you've got a kayak launch or a boat launch. So access in a different variety.
I wish you were here. Several years ago, there were some developments that were done, and there's no access to the lakes. So there was never like an area where people could go and maybe park or, be able to have access to the lake. So
Well, it's a lot of these are public resources, the Hudson and I don't know if
it's Lake Miho.
Yeah. Okay. So you have an opportunity now, and I think that's part of one of the
It's
goals
important.
here is to create public access, and public access is referenced throughout the document as an important component. We've included off-street parking, and with the important component with off-street parking with projects like this is that you try and avoid over parking where you've got multiple uses, multifamily residential and commercial and office. They all have different patterns of when they're used. And so you want to avoid having too much parking, because parking costs money. Structured parking costs $30,000 a space, something like that. So where you try and accommodate those different uses as part of an overall parking strategy. And obviously a developer coming in is going to take a look at that. And there are analyses that the traffic consultants go through to evaluate the different standards for parking and different uses and different timeframes. So then on section 2211-14, we talk about height and setback restrictions. And it was one of the comments that I had raised as part of the earlier evaluation as to how comfortable the village feels with building height. At the GM site, they have a kind of a gradation where the closer you are to the water, it's lower building height. And then once you get towards the center of the site, it goes up to 65 feet in height. That's the maximum height. And so one of the comments that, or one of the thoughts that I had is, do you feel comfortable with a greater building height, given that you had a facility there? I don't know how many stories it was, but it was.
It's at 4 or 5 stories, the general service building over there.
Well, not only that, but just the structures themselves, the reactor,
Oh, well,
right? That's,
I forget how many feet high that is. Yeah.
Yeah, the administration building will be 5 or 6 stories.
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's, again, that's something that I think that you'll want to consider, because the building height allows for greater density, obviously greater density in a smaller area. And that allows you to perhaps preserve
More open space.
more open space,
Mhm.
right? And so that was, as the General Motors project evolved, when it was first submitted, the project was essentially spread out over the entirety of the site. And then based on comments from the public, from other interested in agencies and stakeholders, essentially it was clustered where you shrank the development program into a smaller area. And out of a 63-acre site, they preserved essentially almost 16 acres on the perimeter as open space, and then they created a central open space. So again, these are some of the concepts that, and building height allows you some flexibility. So that's, again, that's one of the comments in the margin that I think is important for you as a board to begin to think about.
David, on that site that you're speaking of, how many residential units ended up being developed down there?
They're approved for 1,177 units, and I think that they have close to 600 that have either been approved or are under construction or occupied. So that's, and the most recent building that's going up, the Daymark, it's a condominium project. It looks out, part of it looks out over the Hudson towards Tappan Zee, and then south, or the Marion Cuomo, depending on what your reference point is.
It's the Tappan Zee.
Yeah,
And that's on
think
60
most
and
of
that's
them
on
call
63
that.
acres.
60, yes, 63 acres, right. But it's a phenomenal price that they're getting per square foot on sales.
Yep.
So towards the end of the application, where it says general development requirements, there is a note here that the minimum gross development area per dwelling unit. So in Sleepy Hollow, they have 2,200 square feet per unit. And that was used as a factor that essentially, when you look at the GM site, it was close to, I think they were allowed 2,200 units under zoning. They came in with 1,700, and then it got knocked down as part of the environmental review process. But that's kind of one standard. Actually, I take that back. The Edge on Hudson, that density development would actually be 3,400 units, but it got knocked down simply because there are issues. Once you start to look at the traffic and the utilities, you couldn't accommodate that scale of development. But it was important that when the village was drafting the language for the zoning, the GM plant had closed and it was in the process of being demolished. So the village understood that in order to make it economically viable, you had to have a lot of density on the site. And I think you probably have kind of the same situation here, where you've got a lot of development costs just to get the site ready for development. So with the recently amended C1, C2 overlay, you have a development area per dwelling unit of 1,428 square feet. So if you translated that and applied that to the area that we're looking at, approximately 173 developable acres, that translates into 5,200 units. So I'm just throwing the numbers out.
Yeah.
And I don't expect you don't have to have a response. And that's part of the the benefit of going through this discussion of what's a comfort level. The see my notes here. All right, so the C2 overlay, all right, so the C1, C2 overlay, the gross development area, that's not without, that's kind of like the standard C1, C2 overlay. You apply that, you get approximately 2,260 units. And then if you have the C2, C1, C2 overlay, the permitted by right gross development area of 5,445 square feet, that translates into 1,384 units. So you could go from anywhere as low as 1,300, almost 1,400 units up to over 5,000 units. So again, this is just kind of shows you how, if you apply different standards, where you come up with some of the density ranges that may be applied. So again, don't have to have an answer tonight, but I think it's important again to think about kind of the density and the type of density that you would want to have there as part of the future zoning. And then just to quickly wrap up the overview, there was a discussion at one point with your board about the existing facility that's there now, the south end, the
Sheetrock.
sheetrock, right, the sheetrock. So the concept was, all right, they're there, they're a known entity. Can we create something to keep them there? But not as a non-conforming use, but perhaps as a special permit use. So I've included, or as an overlay district that will allow them to continue to operate as a special permit use. So I've included some draft language. It's not completely refined yet, but it has at least some of the outlines of how that could be incorporated. And there are a number of examples in New York State, and I was able to find one from the town of Brookhaven, where they had an overlay district, and they allowed for essentially a 4-year period that allowed that property owner to apply for the special permit process to get them regulated under the code. And I think it's important, based on the discussion that we had with you all, that there are certain impacts related to that type of use, the amount of truck traffic, extent, what happens on the road system. There's complaints about dust and some other issues. And so this process allows the village to better regulate that, but still allows them to continue as a viable operation going forward. And if they continue, that's, God bless. If they go out of business or if they move, then the underlying zone would take place, and that would allow for this other type of development, this kind of waterfront development district to be accommodated.
Mhm.
So that is summary of
Good
the
review.
and a review of the text that's been presented to you. Happy to.
Dave, can you talk about the process moving forward?
So
If they want to continue moving forward.
Yeah.
We got a timeline.
yeah, so if you obviously I need to get feedback from you all on and from your staff on the language. Procedurally, you will at some point, if you want to move forward with the draft text, you'll have to go through the secret process. That's the State Environmental Quality Review. We've outlined as part of our our scope of work, the preparation of the environmental assessment form. You'll have to hold a public hearing. You'll have to go through the process of declaring your intent to act as lead agency, just like you did with the other projects in the village. You'll have to have a public hearing. You'll probably get extensive comments. One of the factors here is that because it's a waterfront community, New York State is going to probably take a close look at what you're proposing. There may be other stakeholders and interest groups that you've dealt with before in the past who will be taking an interest. But that's part of the process. And I think to your credit, I think part of what I've been hearing is, all right, we want to make this happen, but we want to make sure that there's public access to the waterfront, which I think everybody's in agreement is a good thing. And then it's just trying to evaluate how the extent of the development program fits in with what you'd like to see as a vision down there. So you'd have to go through the environmental review process, and then ultimately you will have your environmental determination, and then you would be able to vote on the text and adopt that, and make the appropriate amendments to your code and to your zoning map.
One of the things that might help, the 60 acres is on hold, little pause for a while, because of the legislation, but they have to, before they release that property, have to do a site characterization. So Holtec will do a lot of work into looking into the environment. But another thing, as you're looking at the 60 acres, which is something that didn't come up before, it might not end up being 60 acres. It might be 40, 45 acres in the end, because there has to be a buffer.
Right.
All the fuel is on pad now. So, you know, the topo helps us a little bit there, but, you know, that might not be the 60 acres in the end. And that's a conversation you'll have to have, you know, with Holtec. They'd be able to give you better direction on that.
Right. And I think part of the benefit of looking at this comprehensively is, let's say you have the 60 acres, but 20 of it needs to be a buffer. You should still get the credit, the development credit for those 20 acres from that buffer, and just shift the development program to the developable portion of the site that can accommodate it. So that, again, so that you're responding to the particular concern, but at the same time, you're still creating economic value and you're not losing that development potential. You're just shifting it. It's like a transfer of development rights to the most appropriate portion of the property.
Yeah, that would probably be closer to our Lens Cove area, that the development would go closer there. I still would like the opportunity. I saw the mayor of Tarrytown last week at the Westchester Municipal meeting, and they were disappointed that we didn't come, but I'd still like to set up that meeting. I think that's important. So anyone that would like to come to that, I know last minute we had to cancel, but
I reached out to both Tarrytown and Sleepy Hollow. I'm waiting for them to get back with some possible dates, since they were like,
Good.
yeah, I'm like, pass it to the board.
I think that'd be interesting to see what they've done there. And then also, I know at one point they were talking about continuing the trailway. I think that's part of the LWRP. They wanted to extend it from Peekskill through Verplank, and we have that middle section where the plan is now. That's going to be many years before that's available. What else? No, I think that was a good review, Dave. Thank you. So, I don't know. My personal opinion is I think we should move forward with the rezoning, because I did want to talk to the board tonight. We did have a meeting. Bob and Marcus came. I don't know, Marcus, have you said anything to?
A little bit,
Mhm.
yeah.
So they're not willing, Holtec is not willing to release the 60 acres at this point. They're,
Mhm.
you know, and it's going to take them time to do the site characterization. But I was very surprised after the decommissioning meeting, they asked me to meet with them on, you know, that Monday.
Mhm.
And there is a company that's interested. I don't know if it's going to work for us, but there is 10 acres they'd be willing to release by the Unit 3 entrance,
Okay.
where the training building was.
All right.
So I think that's something maybe, you know, the board needs to look at first to see. I don't think that has to go. My understanding, Bob, do you remember if a site characterization had to be done? Because the
No.
property, okay, the property going to Broadway is considered virgin land.
Okay.
So it can be released easier. So I don't want to say the company or what it is, but you know, I was happy that there's a potential that they'll release out of the 240 acres, at least they're interested in something.
Good.
I just want to just take a little step back and make sure that the public and maybe anybody at home, you know, understands that, you know, kind of where we are. 'Cause, you know, you gave a lot of great details, but just, you know, kind of forgotten where, you know, how we got to this point. So, you know, any municipality has different zones that allow for different uses. Our particular zone, M1 zone that we have over by Broadway, you encompasses most of Indian Point, Certainteed, and it goes along the river. The village board has been interested in changing, the permitted uses currently are nuclear power, I think, gas station or
Yeah.
some other
Yeah.
uses.
Right.
I don't know if a gas
So-
station is good there, but.
With the closure of, with Indian Point, the village board felt that it was necessary to change the zoning to something more appropriate. And so, we've been in discussions with you, Dave, I think for about 18 months, and we're looking to redevelop, change the current zoning for the entire district to allow for future development at some other time.
Yes, thank you. That I probably should have let off with that.
Yeah, that's
I was
okay.
so anxious to get into zoning.
I know you were really
I-
into
you know.
that. Yes.
But thank you, yes.
Yeah.
It's been a long process even before getting to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And when this ever does go through and it does get rezoned, there are current owners of that property, Certainty being one, Holtec being
Yeah.
another. They have to make a decision whether or not to release or do certain things with their property.
Yeah.
So there's nothing further, for the board to consider other than the potential of rezoning.
correct.
This progress.
Any other questions for Dave? You did a good job, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
I'll work with your staff on, see if there are any other additional comments. We'll continue to refine
Okay.
the language, particularly the overlay portion. And then we'll come back to you and we'll map out, I think, what will be the next steps for you to consider as far as taking this to a public hearing and getting it circulated to the other interested and involved agencies.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Do we have anything else for David this evening or is he dismissed? Is there anything else we have to discuss with Dave this
No.
evening? Okay.
No.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. I want to wish you a
Happy
Merry
holidays.
Christmas
Yes.
and a happy,
You
and
too.
a Happy New Year. Right.
Yes, you too.
Thanks, David. Same to you.
Okay, master fee schedule.
Yes,
sewer
before
connection.
we get into that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
remember,
What else?
The last item we have is the crosswalk issue, and we do
Okay.
have a traffic engineer on the line. So
Oh, I'm
we-
sorry. I didn't realize that. Okay, sure.
Yeah, so Richard from our traffic engineer is here to discuss the crosswalks on Kings Ferry Road that we asked them to take a look at. They provided a proposal. Richard, if you can explain to the board, what was your,
Where's Richard from?
he's from our traffic engineer. He works with Phil Greeley.
Mhm.
So Richard, if you can discuss to the board what you saw at the site, and what your proposal would do to move the project forward.
Sure, absolutely. Good evening, everybody. Rich D'Andrea from Colliers Engineering and Design. We had the opportunity with Marcus to take a look at the Kings Ferry stretch of crosswalk, sidewalk, and if I can, I'll share my screen just so we're all talking about the same thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Give me, just so we're looking at an overview of the area. So we looked at the sidewalks and crosswalk along Kings Ferry Road at Tate Avenue and Bannon Avenue here. And, from our our quick look at what's there today, the key thing is that we saw that there's some deficiencies based on ADA requirements in the curb ramps at both of these intersections at Bannon and Tate. Obviously, there's a desire to provide striped crosswalks at both of these locations where they aren't today. There's some other things that we looked at. If you're going to put a striped crosswalk, you would want to have, with the stop signs that are there, have stop bars that are also there. So those are some of the things that we would look at doing to improve the pedestrian accommodations at those two locations. We had given to the village a quick overview of what our scope of work would be to do that. It would basically be survey of the two intersections and the stretch between, identifying what the current conditions are, and then from there we would take a look at kind of just designing the upgrades for those specific improvements that we've kind of outlined. And there would obviously be a lot more detail that goes into that. there would be specific plans prepared. And ultimately, we would assist with the village with the bidding out of the work to do those specific improvements. So, everything will be done to current New York State DOT standards, basically, or the ADA ProWAG standards for pedestrians in that area. To the extent that they were able to, there may be some certain areas, sections of Kings Ferry Road. In fact, you can see maybe on not so much that picture, but there's some of the slopes along the roadway are a little bit steeper, so there may be some things that we have to deal with that may not be specifically ADA compliant, but we'll get them as close as we possibly can, is the intent. And that would be acceptable. So that's the general overview of what we're looking to do here, to assist you with this area. And I'm happy to answer kind of any questions that go with that.
Richard, why don't you go, there's two steps, your proposal. Can you explain the scope of both proposals on your document?
Yeah, so the survey portion of it, which I kind of mentioned, would just be a field survey of the existing conditions, right? Basically elevations, roadway widths, slopes of the existing, I'm trying to stop sharing my screen while I talk here. Slopes of the existing curb ramps, slopes of the existing sidewalks, all the things that kind of go into the background of ADA compliance and what's actually out there, so that we can see what's there today in real detail. And then from there, once we have that survey information, we can go forward with a formal plan to the construction level plan that would be able to be bid out for improvements, new sidewalk, new curbing, new striping, whatever it might entail for those specific items.
And your fee again? I don't have it in front of me. I apologize.
Yeah, so the survey we had
10,000, 15,000 for the detailed plan.
Yes, correct.
Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
Want to share? Okay. Okay. You know what? I know it sounds like a lot, and I know it's a busy intersection. People tell me all the time they almost get hit. And like I said, I know this sounds like a lot of money, but now that our attention is on this, God forbid somebody gets hurt there and we didn't address it, this money is going to look like nothing. And you see more and more walkers, more and more people walking down Tate Avenue, Kings Ferry, around the lake. You have more people out there exercising. I don't know. I know, years ago, what did we used to do? Just paint the stripes. Now we live in such a lawsuit happy world. You really have to protect yourself. What do you think, Wheels? Because I remember years ago.
We have to do it, so safety.
Yeah.
What it comes down to.
Yeah.
Should have been done before the paving was done, though. Should have been part of the project, yes. Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, because Banner was just done, correct?
Yep. That's what we did this year.
Mhm.
And Tate, not too long ago. It's a couple of years ago.
Yep.
So.
It doesn't really, it's not a tremendous amount of work. It's 2 ADA ramps. Actually 4. You're gonna do Tate as well.
Mhm.
4 ADA ramps and 4 tiles and a crosswalk and stop bars. That's pretty much the scope of work.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not a lot. I'm not really sure why George isn't involved in this. It seems like he could handle something like this. I mean, when he goes out to bid with curb and sidewalk, it's pretty much the same thing.
Mhm.
In the ADA ramps, I mean, I can bring you a set of plans tomorrow for ADA ramps. It's a standard that is everywhere, same standard.
Yep.
The slope is the same, the curb cut is the same, depending on the angle of the crosswalk.
Did you show this to George? Did you?
How did this come to fruition though? Like, why did our engineer not bring this to our attention, knowing that one of those roads was gonna get paved?
They came in from somebody wrote an email.
But this came in a
but-
while
but-
before the road was
Yeah.
paved.
Right.
And
So how was it not incorporated? That's my point.
I gotta ask George.
I mean, it's, you know,
Well,
So
One thing I come up with is, I know that when that sidewalk was put in many years ago,
it was done by the
believe
town.
the school district or the town did that when they built the library.
Mhm.
So I don't know if there's some kind of an agreement where they would take care of that or not. I don't really know.
Mhm.
Because I know to this day, they still go out and they clear those sidewalks.
I think it was a town, Bob. Yeah, because they have that thing that, you're
They
right.
built a new library. There was
Yeah.
an agreement made there. I don't know,
Yeah.
but still.
So long with,
So we'd have to
I
speak
think
to
that-
somebody before we
I think
start.
that when that road was done, repaved before, that should have been part of the plan. So in the past, we've done with all the other roads, that
so
would be
let
done.
me talk to George and
Okay.
then we can discuss it in the next meeting and get you some more information. So there's no decision that have to be done tonight.
yeah, I mean, Wheels
that's
brings up a great point. That road is maintained by the town of Portland and it always has been. That sidewalk was built by the town of Portland. The ADA, the non-conforming ADA ramps that are there now.
Was built by the
Built
town, by the town of Portland. That's
So
correct.
maybe they can do the conforming ADA ramps now and they're done.
Mhm.
well,
No, we just
my
have
only
to-
point was bringing up Bannon Avenue. Like, we just paved it. How is this not incorporated in?
Mhm.
How did
Okay.
it become an afterthought?
All right. So we'll follow up and get some more information together for the board. And we'll go from that point. Richard, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you, Richard.
Yep.
Happy
Okay.
holidays.
Now I
Happy
can,
holidays.
Thank you.
All right,
Happy
thanks.
holidays. Bye.
now we can go to the master fee schedule.
Yeah, as we discussed at the last meeting, trying to get some ideas from other municipalities and we talked about, I recommended to the board, talk about a sewer connection fee for new installations and also a stormwater connection for new installations. So it doesn't affect any current installations we have right now, but this will be a fee schedule that will be a one-time fee per household or per apartment building or whatever they want to do, and just bring some additional revenues into connecting to our system to get some kind of connection fee that gets in there. So it's just if the board wants to move forward, it'll be just a motion going to be approved, and then we'll add it to the fee schedule.
So is this just for in village?
Correct.
So,
Well,
okay,
we
out-
created
You have
two
a rate
different
for
ones.
out
So we have,
Okay, yeah,
we-
because,
so let me explain to this,
Oh, yeah.
put it out there. So there'll be a fee for, within the village, for example, for a house or an apartment, it'll be $124.11 per dwelling unit or per apartment. Outside the village, it'll be $161.37. We used a 30% escalator that we've used in other occasions to try to be fair and across the board. So that'll be $161.37 per dwelling unit outside the village, if we connect
Outside,
that back from
okay.
the outside. So people outside pay a little bit more, people inside pay a little less.
So being that it falls under new construction, we have the IMA in place and they're not new construction. And those are gonna be all new taps, but
Mhm,
the buildings are pre-existing.
mhm.
So where does that fall?
That's a very good question. That could be up to the board if you want to exempt anything that is already put in there. I didn't even consider that's a good
It's just a
question.
new
Yeah.
connection.
So we could
not
just
new
say-
construction.
So,
Right,
yeah,
so
yeah.
new connection.
Right.
Yeah, so the way described here is that connection. So
Mm-hmm.
if the board says new connection to me, if we connect
That's
to
the
the
way it
town,
has to be.
Yeah.
It
that's
Yeah.
the way I
can't be a new
feel.
connection. It can't be
New
new construction.
construction.
It
Yeah,
has to be
I-
new
I
connection.
agree.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because if somebody has a septic system and they want to convert to sewer,
correct.
Yep.
it's a new connection.
Connection.
It's not new
Yep.
construction, it's a new
Correct.
connection. So
And I like you
that's-
And
said
it's the
that.
same
But
thing,
the way I wrote up is connection, is a connection fee.
Yeah, it has to be, the
Okay.
language has to say new connection.
Yep,
Yep.
perfect. That'll meet that requirement. So that's the board.
yeah, just add new.
Just trying to think outside the box a little bit.
No,
talk to the other
and-
municipalities.
No, I think it's a
No, I
good
thought-
idea. I really
Yeah, I do too, and
You know, we have to maintain even their stormwater, you know, it puts a strain on our stormwater. system.
Absolutely.
And if we have to maintain the stormwater, then we should be reimbursed in some fashion.
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
and
Thank
like
you.
Marcus
Yeah,
said, this is commonplace in other surrounding
Correct.
areas, so.
correct. All right, cool. So if we can put it on the agenda to be approved, then we can move forward.
That'll work.
Great.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, third-party inspection on certain projects. Marcus?
Talk to Peter. I'll let Peter explain what he's trying to do. He talked to a whole bunch of other a whole bunch of other building inspectors.
Yes.
So he can explain what he's trying to do. No, it's the review, not inspection. He'll explain it.
Yeah,
There was a meeting in the agenda, so we can.
Okay.
it was something I wanted to discuss with the board. I'm concerned about the liability, about the review of these projects, because they are quite large. We are a small municipality. I only have so many hours in the day, and there's a lot of responsibility involved in those projects. Their engineers obviously know what they're doing, but I've spoken with 4 other inspectors, Mount Pleasant, Yonkers, Harrison, and White Plains, and they all give all of their projects of this scale and larger size to a company called JHW Consulting. They're engineers, and those engineers, there are 2 of them. They were actually part of the New York State ICC for 15 years and wrote most of the code that we have in place today. So their review is actually based on code reference for issues. So unlike other engineers that say questioning, because of this code and this reference and this is why this does not comply. And that makes it easier for us and takes the liability off the village and my department. If we're anything that's overlooked or missed, because it's hard to catch all of that on such a massive project. They do not offer inspection services at this time, but the inspections will still be done by Brian and myself. Because again, there are a lot of parameters of how the inspection can take place on a multi-story building that the items are identical. You can go every 3rd one randomly, you get every 4th one, because they're built by the same contractor, same. So there's ways around we can handle the inspection part of it ourselves. But I would like the liability to be on the engineering company to review the plan, to take that responsibility off of my shoulders, Brian's and the village's. If something were to be overlooked, say 2 inches on a floor height or something that changes the parameters of the building, I don't want it to fall back on us. It will be incorporated and taken out of our permitting processing fee for the project. And that would be how the cost would be taken care of. And we're not directly paying for it, but it's coming out of.
So
our
the
permit
expense
fees.
would come from.
It comes out of the
developer.
permit fee process of
Okay.
our.
It's from the
permit fee.
applicant.
All right.
From the
Correct.
applicant, yes.
Correct.
Mhm.
So I just, it's after having many discussions with these inspectors, Regeneron, the Amazon building,
Yeah.
the movie theater, all of them,
Mhm.
they give it all to JHW.
Oh.
Because again, there are other companies and there are different price variables and they happen to be more money that my understanding. And my concern is that this particular company were our New York State building code people for 15 years. They made the code that we have and they're the engineers that confirm it all. So their review is based on New York State code, all 9 books from start to finish. And then they give us the review, then that's when I get to see it and see what the issues are. And then we can go back to our other, projects that are happening and discuss it with the engineers. And I have discussed this with the other projects engineers and they completely agree. They want to make sure that, what they're giving us is 100% also. So it's above board. I want us to be protected.
It's another review.
It's another review.
Mhm.
And it takes the responsibility of the review off of the building department, Brian and myself, and the liability off of Brian and myself and the village. Should something not be correct, I don't want to overlook something. And I want every facet of that project to be to code perfectly in sync, and that's
The
why. I was
benefits here is there's no fee to the taxpayer.
Right.
It comes out of the
Right.
permit fee.
Right.
Actually streamlines the process.
Yeah.
At the
Yes.
same time, it takes the burden off the workload off the building department,
Yes.
let them do that. But that's the first phase of any construction is reviewing the application and all the plans. At least then the applicant can move forward with construction.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's a great idea.
appreciate it.
I agree. Yeah.
I was wondering how you were gonna cover that.
Yeah.
It's a lot, Anthony. It's a lot,
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
the consultant is working for us.
Yeah.
And you make sure he understands that,
Yes,
and they may have to recycle the consultants through the job so he doesn't get too comfortable.
right.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
it becomes that becomes an issue as well.
Yeah, this is.
There's factors with pressure testing of pipe and,
Yes.
fire systems and all that stuff.
Mhm.
We have to make sure we stay on top of all of that.
All of it. Yeah, there's a
A
lot.
lot to stay on top of.
Yeah.
There's a lot to stay on
Yeah.
top of for these projects.
And if
Yeah,
we're gonna have.
all those units have to be tested, every one of
Yes.
them.
It's a lot.
They all have to be up to code and the fire system has to be up to code and
And that's why-
every sewer pipe has to be pressure tested.
Everything has to be just the way it's supposed to be to code. I want to make sure.
Thank you. And thank you for
Recovery.
bringing that to the
It was a
board.
concern of mine.
Yeah, no. it's
Good job on your part.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fund balance.
It was actually my mistake. We discussed this some time ago and I think the
Right,
board said,
hold
go
on.
ahead and move forward with it, but we never really adopted it.
Okay,
So I just
so-
want to put it on the agenda to get adopted and getting it forward, especially if we're gonna go to a bond next year. I
Mhm.
want to get that off,
Yep.
as checked off when we go to, get a bond rating. So just want to hopefully move forward with that. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Stephanie, do you have anything for us this evening? Any exec session items? No? Okay.
No, I mean, I do have a quick update on John Doe, and I don't think it needs executive session because you all know that the appeal was filed. I talked to our attorney today. He's moving, he's opposing that appeal to re-argue, and we're both pretty comfortable that the judge will probably deny the appeal and we'll be where we were before. He did a really nice job and the law's behind him. So that's the only update. And I'll get back to you as soon as the judges rule.
All right, good.
The other thing is this dog control officer came across my computer recently.
That
I don't know.
they
anything about it.
contacted, I believe, Marcus, then they weren't going to do anything, the town. They wanted me to ask the supervisor forwarded to their attorneys. And that's, I
Who's
knew,
that person on the email.
Oh,
Who's that?
it was state of New York. The
Yeah.
state of New York,
That's the first I'm hearing of it.
yeah, the state of New York is asking that we don't have it. The town, again, I don't know if the town did it for many, many years.
Yeah.
Cindy and Sharon can tell you, and all of a sudden they stopped doing it. And,
They stop.
it's gotta be,
ladies,
yeah, they didn't have anybody at the time and
Right.
it got dropped.
We had an IMA since 1992. That's the one I got from the town.
Okay,
Um,
so,
And we were paying $4,000 a year back then. So I don't know what the
No,
deal is now. I
no,
mean, do you want me to
no.
reach out to somebody? What do you want to?
I don't think we ever paid them.
But any
Okay, well,
service
we
that,
signed the
Wow.
IMA that said
And
we
they
were-
never-
maybe we didn't.
any service that we don't have that we're required, such as an assessor, the town
That's
Picks up,
that
correct?
was my,
Not under the dog control.
no,
law.
Okay.
yeah.
So that's,
yeah.
Because we have it in our code and we license dogs.
okay.
Once you say
So
we'll
we're-
license them, so we have to have a dog control. If we didn't have that part of the code.
Yeah.
The town.
They would
Can
collect-
we-
They would collect the
You
fee.
could
Yeah.
eliminate the
Yeah, you
dog,
could.
you could eliminate the dog license
And then-
and then
yeah.
everything falls to the town.
and then give it to the town.
Right.
That would make
That's up
sense.
to you.
That's-
It's relatively new in the code. I think it's 2011
Yeah.
for some
many-
reason.
How many
Something
people
about-
come in to get dog license in the village?
Sharon? Go get the mic next to you.
Marcus? We only have a couple a year, but we have probably like 25 dogs out of this whole village.
So if the
Wait,
village.
so
if
we
the
have
village-
25 dogs registered.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, that's
Okay.
better.
yeah,
There's a lot more than 25 dogs in a village.
Exactly.
yeah.
Well, let me be real clear, right? So we could, if you
Eliminate.
repealed and eliminated that law, you don't license the dogs, the town has to.
Correct.
They also then have to provide dog control, but there's nothing in the statute that says they have to do it for free. So if we're trying to get an end run around having to pay for it,
Either
you
way.
can
And
leave
that-
it as it is in a
and-
contract
right.
with them. You could ask
Yeah.
them nicely to do it. for
And,
free.
and that's,
You could-
and that would be an interesting fight because the town resident pay a town tax for services, so
Why
that.
don't we enter into an IMA agreement with them?
Right.
I mean, I just heard
Yeah.
about this like 3
Just-
days
yeah.
ago. I
Yeah.
called Michael
Yeah.
Cunningham. He sent me one from 1992.
Maybe they'll offer it just.
Time for a new one.
Maybe they will,
They-
yeah.
they
You know-
But the
For a
emails were
dollar.
going back and forth. I didn't know. where we
They
were
never
at.
actual payment.
The taxes that the village residents pay and the services that they really don't get because we were told years ago, it's for recreation fees. So go and look at what you all pay for your town tax in April, and we really don't get anything from the town. So that's part of negotiating with them.
You have to talk to their board. I mean, you would talk.
Yeah.
Well, I
Supervisor.
spoke to the supervisor and he just sent it to the attorneys. He said he was going to forward it to Tom and Mike.
I never heard from either of the attorneys. I actually, when I saw the emails going back and forth between you two, I just wrote Michael and Tom and said, hey, what's the
Yeah.
deal? And did we ever have an IMA? And Michael said, let me look. And he said,
Yeah.
actually, we do. But
Yeah,
they
there
never
was
brought
some.
it to me. I only saw emails. So I jumped on it just because I wasn't sure what we were doing. So if you want me to respond, I mean, to talk to them to see if they're involved, I will.
Yes, please. You
But-
know, it went
Okay.
from the supervisor to the attorney and the attorneys need to chat about it so we can get that resolved.
Okay,
Please, thank you.
sure.
Okay. Marcus, do you have anything else for us?
One thing, if Bob wants to bring it, I got a call from the fire chief.
Okay,
That's how I want to bring it up. The fire truck It looks like they did have a fast track truck. So I'll let Bob explain to where we are and we can talk about the numbers. Go ahead.
As we all know, we've been looking for another truck. And we've had a couple calls about some fast track trucks that might work for us. One didn't and one looks like it will. The issue is with it is that it's gonna be more than the allotted money that was voted on by the board. So I guess the question came up is where can we get the additional funding? I spoke with Marcus a little bit this afternoon, thinking that maybe we can get that from the vehicle replacement account that we have. And then when we sell the vehicles that we're gonna be selling off, when we buy that truck, that will go back into that fund.
Mhm.
The issue with it is it has to be done like yesterday.
Mm.
Because this truck can be gone in 2 days. And I asked all the questions, like it sounds like a sales pitch, you have to do it now, because otherwise you're gonna lose it tomorrow, but I guess our representative from Firematic, I guess, called in some favors to the company that can get the fast tracks, because Firematic's very small. And they don't get the access to these fast track trucks, as you know, Sarah. So they reached out to somewhere in Pennsylvania. And they're actually gonna be able to modify the truck a little bit for us on the fast track. So paperwork needs to be, put forward real fast, as fast as we possibly can to get this move forward.
But no payment has to be
No
made.
payment has to be made at
So
all.
financially.
We understand it, but what is the difference between what was approved?
Oh, their proposal is 900,000 versus 850.
No. The new one's like 950.
950 versus the 850 you got.
And there are a couple of
So
things
it's
that are coming
100.
down the pipe next year, if trucks start being produced next year, they're gonna have to put in newer motors in these things, which are all the emissions. And those are gonna cost $130,000 more just for that engine.
It's $100,000 amount.
There's 100,000 and we have, Sharon, how much money we have in the account?
215,260. Wait, 215?
So let's repeat it again.
No.
215,000.
Okay.
Sharon?
Good. All right, so we have the money.
That's where we're
in
at.
We
there
have the money to
to
make
do
it.
that, so.
Speaking with a few of the chiefs the last couple of days over other trucks, and this one just came across this morning.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
of course, I'm Mr. like, why does this have to happen so quick? But there are reasons for it, because they're gonna order parts tomorrow and they're building the truck.
So do we need a vote by the board on that, or can we just give direction to follow through with it?
You guys bonded the money, you have the resolution. Or the thing is, I can sign the documents, you can sign the documents, we can move forward. You already committed the money. Your idea is, if this is a truck you want to move forward on, we can move forward with it.
My only question is, I mean, we discussed this a couple weeks ago and now this fast track truck is
Right.
available. If we were to say, okay, let's hold on. 2 weeks from now is another fast track truck available.
We don't know. That's the problem. That's
A month from now,
There are the things
we
don't
have
know.
an operating truck currently that we
just
repaired.
fixed.
Right.
Well. it's
So I don't think the urgency is necessarily,
Well, the
there.
urgency is to replace the truck for as cheap as we can. in
Oh,
my opinion,
absolutely.
And I think this is the way to go, because we're gonna have to replace this truck sooner or later. It's 30.
oh,
Well, you-
I agree. I was,
So, I mean,
Supporting-
I know, but
going to bond for it, but I just, I don't know, a week from now, is another one gonna, become available that
Could be a
that
better
is in our
deal.
price range?
I don't think there'll be any better deals when that new motor comes down the road.
Well, you didn't think a fast track truck was gonna be available either.
Right, but the new motor is coming down the road. That's happening.
I know these
2024.
very well, and.
Yeah, you probably know better than I do. And there's some
And the
big money,
$130,000 for a diesel motor
more
is
than what we're
insane.
getting now.
I don't know if that for emissions seems a little drastic to me, but
Well,
you're right in a way, but seems like a lot of money. I feel that I'm kind of with Steve, but I'm kind of with you. I don't know what to do. I don't know anything about fire trucks.
right.
I don't know anything about fast track fire trucks. I know we just repaired the existing truck's pump for a number around $25,000.
Right.
And that is something that we're not gonna get back. Even when we
Right.
sell the truck, they're not gonna say, oh, well, you just rebuilt the pump. I'll throw an extra 25,000 on top. That's not gonna happen.
Oh, I agree with you.
You know what I mean?
I
We're gonna
agree.
get, the truck is gonna be whatever the value of the truck is, regardless of how good the
Right.
pump works or not.
Right.
So that we have to take into consideration as well. I do know that it's a liability, though. It is an emergency response vehicle that is, could be detriment to a situation. So I don't know.
It's
Well,
a tough call.
The way I looked at it when I spoke with Marcus this afternoon quickly about it was that we already put the bond forward to do it anyway. We have the resources without adding to that bond to offset that difference. And when we sell the 2 trucks that we're replacing 2 with 1, that we will, I'm not gonna say it's gonna be a wash,
Mhm.
but it's
We
gonna.
already have the money set forward. I
Right.
mean, if this is the truck that the
No.
fire department wants, you might as well just do it. I just.
I
feel
will
like-
say this.
What's the time frame?
It's not the one they want, but it's when they're gonna have to take.
Right.
Well,
That's what comes down.
Well, you know what? These things aren't going to get any cheaper.
Right.
You know,
No.
you
Well, that's
see
the
the
point.
costs going up and up and up. Yeah, it's everything.
That's the
everything.
point.
It'll suffice for what the needs are that we need for the department. It's not, the best of everything that they need, but they can make it work.
So, but Bobby, just to reiterate, what is the turnaround time that we'd be taking delivery on this thing where then there's going to be payment due? So what
This
are we looking?
truck will-
It-
Don't mark my words 100% on this, but I believe they said by August we'll have it.
Okay,
If we have to spec a brand new one out, completely brand new, we're looking at 3 years.
right.
Summer's just
Oh, wait.
3 years.
Wow.
No, I know.
No, we understand that, but there's,
Mm.
this fast track truck is available now.
Right.
Mhm.
Next week, another one for in our price range may be available. It may not.
Right. Well,
But, that's just
Yeah.
something to
And
consider.
right now, we do have a vendor that's kind of pushing for us a little bit, explaining the situation where we're at as a community, trying to say we're trying to do this, and they're doing a little bit extra for us, let's call it, not charging us for it. I can't mark that down, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's, they're getting it as best we can get for what we need.
The other thing, and a week ago, we didn't hear about the $130,000 increase because the engine needed to be.
Not in a good way. Not
Well,
in a good way.
That plays
Oh,
into
yeah.
my decision as well.
Yeah.
Why didn't I hear about that last week when
Right.
we were discussing this?
Right.
So,
Always tough
Sales pitch.
decisions.
Like,
Yeah, well,
Sales pitch.
you're partly right.
Yeah.
I have the same apprehension that you guys do with that
Yeah.
stuff too, and I understand it,
It's
but
a lot of money.
I do
Yeah.
understand the need of it.
oh,
I mean, it's
absolutely.
not going to get any better.
Yep.
So,
It's a board decision. The good news is the money set aside, where we got a new truck already, the 100,000 can come out of the reserve account. We put $50,000 in there, we sell the truck, the money be back to where it was within 2 years, so. And what
Red, right?
yeah.
was that?
Always do.
What
right.
color would you
It's
like?
not yellow.
Colors.
Oh, no. And I've seen some pretty blue ones too. I have seen
Oh,
those. Yeah, yeah.
Now,
Oh, is it Tarrytown?
the resolution hasn't
Yeah.
been voted on or
Yeah, we
enacted.
did that.
No, you adopted,
We did
at
that
the last
last
meeting,
time.
yes.
Okay.
So that allows you to spend the money, but if it comes in August, we're gonna
Yeah.
do it in June and July anyway, so the money be available, so. And then, by then we'll know hopefully what our trucks can sell for, and then we can put the money back
And
in.
from this point forward, if we go forward with it, which I hope we do, it's really turned over to the village.
Well,
If the department's done their research and done what they can do, then all the paperwork and stuff will pass on to Marcus.
no, I think everybody's just a little surprised that like
Oh, yeah.
out the gate now, all of a sudden we were looking at, we thought even with a
Yeah.
fast track truck, we were looking at a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden we're looking at August that this is going to be plopped in our lap. So,
Yeah.
it's,
Oh, yeah, believe me, I understand. I brought those same comments to them.
that's all.
So what's the board's pleasure?
Well, being that the money's already allocated, right? That's correct.
We do have the money.
Really think that we should move forward if this is what the fire department actually needs and
Mhm.
wants. I have questions on it, but I think we've already made the move towards the fire truck. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm good.
Yeah.
And like I said, the costs are only going to continue to increase.
mean,
Look at
look-
cars and everything else. Everything is just, since COVID, everything and the supply and yeah, it's not going to get cheaper, that's for sure.
Okay, well. I
There you
understand.
go.
And we thank them.
It's
So
absolutely.
we figure out what we have to do.
I need to
Go
drive.
forward. It's-
I just want to take it for a ride.
Not always easy decisions.
I'm telling you, tell Bob I want to be a driver over there. There you go.
Oh, wow, we can both do it.
You want that picture?
I- Yeah,
As soon as possible. I'm ready to do it.
when we did our
Okay.
25th, the 25th, my anniversary at the luncheon, I said, Bob, so now can I drive the fire truck? So there's a lot of training though that goes involved with these.
With everything else you have going on, you'll be a volunteer firefighter.
Yeah,
I don't
there you
mind.
go.
I don't mind.
That's right.
Do it.
Get around, get behind the wheel of the truck.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, good.
We're looking to come on the truck made for Croton now. We're looking to replace Harmon's truck and everything he says is true.
Yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
not cheap. It's a big investment.
We're not going for a Seagrave either.
Yeah, no.
We don't know what we're looking at.
They're so special.
It's just the timing of it, how
Right.
4 years.
it happened so fast. Bob, Chief Outhouse came in here 2 weeks ago, said we're looking for a fast track truck. We may never get it. And then
Ta-da, here it is. Yeah.
We're particular, brand new.
You can afford it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay.
We
think-
don't want yellow.
Luck with
I
that.
think we're gonna stay red. Mhm. So,
Great.
Bob, what do you have?
That's all I
You have
have. I
anything
just-
else? All
only
right,
thing I have
thank you.
to Say is really just like, happy holidays, everybody, and be safe out there.
Yeah,
Don't drink and drive. All that good stuff,
good advice.
Yeah,
very good.
and be kind to each other.
It's Christmas.
We need a lot of that this year. We need a lot of it in this whole world, so.
Yeah. Anthony, what do you have for us tonight?
Not much, just Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and be careful, like Bob said, and be kind to one another, which it sounds nice to hear through this holiday season.
Because Santa is still watching. Dan, what do you have for us?
Just happy holidays to everybody. And just want to say that Steve and I met with Beth Keenan in relation to the St. Patrick's Day Parade. And we're going to be looking for people who want to get involved. We want to try and keep this tradition running. And Steve wants to, hit on it a little bit further than I, but that was really all I have this evening.
Once again, they left the Italian out
Oh,
of the meeting again.
There's one day in March, everybody's Irish.
That's right.
that's true.
One day.
And do you want to put any information in the newsletter? If you do, let Sharon know.
Yeah,
Any-
definitely. Dan and I will come up with a
Yeah.
date
Okay.
to,
Oh,
you got it.
okay. No hurry, right, Sharon?
No
Now he
pressure.
speaks.
That's a fast track off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we are looking for, we're looking for volunteers, just put it that way. Help us organize, line up bands, put together a program, form the committee to try and figure out who we're gonna select as grand marshal and aides, that sort of thing. So
Mhm.
whoever would be willing to step forward and help us out, we'd greatly appreciate it.
Okay, Steve, what do you have for us?
Just to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I want to thank our village staff and professionals for all their help throughout the year. They help make this village the great village that it is. So I thank everybody and wish everybody happy holidays.
And we had a nice luncheon for our employees today. It was well attended. Steve and Dan were there, so we like to thank them for all their hard work and how they take care of our residents and, and they go above and beyond. So it was a thank you and a nice tradition that we do every year. And the building was really hopping today. We had the seniors on the second floor. We had the employee luncheon on the third floor. So it was a busy place.
And the food was delicious, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan. I stayed up all last night cooking that.
So-
No, I didn't. I used to
We
do
may
that.
want to give a little shout out, local business.
That's right.
No,
That's
no.
right. Yep.
So-
Nona's. Yep. We like to, work with the local businesses and help them out too. And Gerard's. We went to Gerard's too. We went to 2 different
There you go.
places. The senior luncheon last week was, it's a fun group. These people are such a fun group. So, I enjoyed that being there with them. I just want everyone to know the governor recently signed, she's signing a lot of legislation. She's got to get this done by December 31st, the bills that are on the table. But right now there's something called lead pipes removal. It's about need to know about lead pipes and stuff. So there's going to be, if you have lead pipes, the source, they're going to have to remove them now. There's really interesting legislation coming out. Not interesting good, but you need to pay attention. I don't even know, I don't want to get into the conversation if the village has any lead pipes. I don't even want to get into that conversation. I hope not. Oh, my God. Today, I was, Congressman Lawler had the Veteran of the Year ceremony, and Bob Ferguson, our resident, he was well-deserved. He does a lot for the VA, working with the veterans, and, so it was a beautiful ceremony that the congressman had. And also Duke Searles was there. And he used to run the pantry, the VA pantry for the veterans, and his volunteers. They did a phenomenal job. And things happened. And so his group is not doing that anymore, but the congressman recognized him for his service. Also, there was John Donahue, the commander of the American Legion post in Peekskill. And it was interesting because there's the same theme that goes on. The people that served in the service still come out into the community and continue to serve all different ways, you know, whether they're in police departments, fire departments, they're on boards, they're on different community groups, you know, so it's something that is from within them, that they serve the community, and then they still can serve the community after their service. So some of the stories were really touching, and you know, they were just so proud to receive that recognition from the congressman. Also, Wreaths Across America, that was done at different cemeteries. So next year, when you see that they're looking for donations for that, this is done throughout the country. This has been going on for years. This is picking up more and more here. It was at the Assumption Cemetery one. And so, yeah, please donate to that, because a lot of these veterans, it only goes on the veterans' graves. A lot of these veterans, their families are no longer here. So it's a good way to recognize these people. They have something on their grave at Christmas time. So, but John Donahue does a phenomenal job. He does. I'm telling you, he's like in his 90s, and the man, I'll tell you, he still goes strong, and he's doing a lot of good things for the veterans. The only other thing I have to say is Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everyone, a happy and healthy New Year, and peace on earth. Hopefully we all can get together soon and stop fighting around the world. But every day you see more, and you just shake your head. Any comments from the floor?
What?
Oh, there's Arlene. Come on. Hi, Eileen.
I don't really have a comment. I have a question. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, Happy everything. What happened at the DOB board, that decommissioning board? You didn't say anything. I was in another meeting that night, so I couldn't listen. And Lisa's not here because it's her birthday.
I know, I'm going to have to wish
So,
her happy birthday.
Yeah.
It was quite a meeting. There's a few people that are on the board that got called out, like Dana Levenberg, Peter Harcum, for their non-support to the Village of Buchanan. It was a really crazy meeting, but I think they understand where the village is coming from, if they'll do anything. I've been told that they want to meet the beginning of the year. So I will bring a board member with me when we have that conversation. But I think it's loud and clear that the Village of Buchanan needs to be supported through this. It's not our fault what happened. It's not our fault that they passed the legislation and has put this whole thing on a pause for 8 years. It's affecting us now. And yeah, no. So it got a little crazy there, but you know, hey, sometimes you just have to tell it like it is, and that's exactly what happened. Yes, yeah, it is. Yeah, it's always under the Indian Point Decommissioning Oversight Board. You know, they tape each meeting. So thank you. Yeah. So yes, sir.
I just want to make sure everybody understands that we have a planning board meeting tomorrow night.
Oh, wow.
Eileen is here too. We have 3 applications on it. I want to make sure everybody understands that. We have the AMS project coming back to the planning board. We have the Village Square project, which is a Carbone project coming back. And we have a new application, Willindo, which is the property, the old gas station.
Oh, yeah.
That's coming. They're going to reapply again. So they're coming back. So we have 3 applications. Anybody interested, you're more than welcome tomorrow night at 7 p.m.
That was what Dan had mentioned last meeting about the tarp across from Reggie Selleck. So I think, can we say what they're looking to do there?
Sure.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, you can tell us. Yeah. What's,
So,
oh,
yeah,
Peter?
So the everything's on the website, so everybody's interested.
Okay, yeah.
The plans are on the website in there, so they want to do a mixed use, apartments above and some kind of commercial on the bottom. They have liquor store, but I don't know what they're actually going to do at the bottom. We'll find out, but commercial on the bottom, residential on top. So everybody's welcome to attend. All the information is on the village website as well. So the meeting is tomorrow night at 7 p.m. if you're interested in attending. Thank you.
Thank you. And Cindy and I go way back. That used to be where one of the milk machine, Eileen, one of the milk machines, you could go down there 24/7, throw the money in and you get the container of milk. So yeah, okay, just a little history. I'm dating myself, stop it. Okay, so we're going into exec about negotiations?
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
No,
Personnel.
personnel? Okay, chief is here, okay. Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming. Merry Christmas. Have a great Buchanan day and a motion to go into executive session. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Happy holidays.